Skyscraper, it is for our final matchup of the weekend. Not just the day, but of the 2 days that comprise the weekend. Today, Sunday, the Lord's Day. But in all reality, it's Brazil's Day, Nick. MIBR versus E1.
Yep, and a very exciting match at that. E1, of course, looking very hot right off the press. They've had a very good run so far. They start off things 7-2 against Liquid and Oregon, and I think that kind of hyped them up to be one of the strongest teams in Brazil. But of course, one game doesn't tell the full story. Then played against Vivo Keed. That was also a 7-5 victory, so currently undefeated here in Stage 2. Can MIBR change that? Will E1 just take it with a clean slate 3-0? They were going to Skyscraper. It's statistically speaking, as C-Dapper said on the desk, a great map for MIBR, but every single team that has been playing against E1 so far, they've been banning it against them. So we'll see just how good they are. Operator bans Ying, Lion, Valkyrie, and Asami. Only one operator really stands out here, and that's going to be the Lion. We don't see that often in play, nor rarely, if ever, banned out. And usually it's for the roam clear, or for those last moment executes where you can force defenders to stand still or get red pinged instead for intel. Of course, Ying, Asami, Valkyrie, just very stable operators, high in pick rate, high in ban rate, all banned this match.
I like that you put it that way. Ying is the most banned attacker. Monty very, very close behind, but 9 bans now with this match going into the books versus Monty's 7 bans. Lion has been banned 1 time before. That's it. In fact, most of the bans in Brazil involve Ying, Monty, Dokkaebi, and then Bana and Nomad, additionally tied with Doke. In terms of the ban defenders, it's far and away Kaid and Azami almost every single time. They vastly represent the defender bans. So the Valk ban is a bit interesting. She's actually tied for the second most bans, but way farther down the list. In terms of the way that these teams play, I always relate to Valkyrie, and I always think of Valkyrie as a Brazilian favored operator.
Yes.
Every Brazilian team loves Valkyrie. I know that that's painting with a broad brush, but I'm not particularly artistic. So I'll use the big brushes. That's fine. This instance, they like to use Valkyrie in this region as a good flex operator, often roaming, and some of the flashiest plays in the history of this region have been done with potentially the flashiest play in Brazilian history being Nesk on that Valkyrie and Oregon basement.
The good old 1v5. I think one of the first ever 1v5s in Tier 1 play as well. But yeah, E1 starting on defense, MIBR on the attack. It's gonna mean that you just sit back if you're E1, just wait for them to come to you. Skyscraper has this kind of odd pace where you don't have that many strong positions outside the bomb site itself, so you're gonna often see defenders in those same positions by Drum, by Dragon Statue, and E1, they have a bit of a twist in this roam game, this extension. They brought in Dodes on the castle to kind of cut off some of the lines of sight and limit where MIBR can be attacking from. Both Dokkaebi calls going out in the first minute and 20 seconds of the round, and before any gunfight has occurred. Will Sexy hear this torch play?
Yeah.
Yes, he does.
This is so brazen. And could go very, very wrong in a hurry, but Sexy Cake falling off of that position after Geisha has been opened up. Wrestled away within 90 seconds.
Wow.
Sexy Cake looking like the Sexy Cake of old. Great to see him back in good form. Down goes Fantasy, and MIBR suffers the first casualty of this match.
Yep. If you know anything about Fantasy, he will usually always be the first to get a kill or to get killed. This man is always in that early action, and this time on the wrong side of things. And E1, you saw it, when they got that initial kill, they actually gave up that castle barricade and deployable shield position. They just kind of play closer to that bomb site. They got the opening pick. Now they want to get as many people next to one another as possible. And Skyscraper's bomb sites are very much designed that way. You don't have a lot of space to work with, so players are always within about a 2-second sprint to one another, and that means that trades can go really quickly on this map.
We're looking for the vault in towards Dragon. 2 separate players from E1 looking in that position. Sexy Cake on the board a second time. Astro in as well, so is Raps. The only kill for MIBR is Rayduct. He finds Lukid. Yoda's low on HP, so there's another opportunity there for MIBR, but they've only got 20 seconds left, and I think Rayduct is going to take a timeout at this point. Why bother? 15 seconds remaining in a Nook and a 1v4. E1 posted up, watching the staircases, watching the ways in. Deny the final pick. Rayduct ain't moving. E1 taking round number 1.
So one-sided round as well. Now, this is Skyscraper defense. It can look very difficult for the attack, and it's because it simply is very difficult. It's hard to get in the building, it's hard to progress throughout the building, and then when you finally meet that bomb site, that too is hard as well. So there's just no easy ways throughout this. One operator in particular that tends to get played a lot on Skyscraper, that does tend to make things easier, is the Monty. We know MIBR, we know Rare, they love to bring out this operator, but execution is extremely important. Just simply pegging the Monty as an operator is not going to mean the round is, already won by any means. You need to play it very well. Because the map is constructed the way it is, you don't have that much room to work with on defense, which also means Monty doesn't have a lot of space either. It's easy to get picked off, die to C4s, or toxic babes from the smoke on defense, if played, can quickly take down your health bar or make it hard to push to the areas that you need to get to. MIBR so far still sticking that Monty operator in the attack and repick phase. Of course, that can change, and as I speak it into existence, he goes onto Togepi instead. I'm ever so sad about this because I'm a big Monty and Blitz enjoyer. And earlier today, between Lowe's and Netshoes Miners on Night Even Labs, if you did not see it, we saw about 4 rounds worth of Blitz play, and there were some pretty funny highlights from those rounds. No spoilers.
No spoilers. Even though we've been quite egregiously spoiling up to this point.
Yeah, even though, the spoiling ends there.
This is where we draw the line. For the MIBR and E1 fans, we have more respect for them. We don't want to spoil anything in previous matchups. Sexy Cake playing over in Terrace. Activating 2 of those Dread Mines from positions that they are expecting MIBR to come from. Every single time we cast this match, we have to give a spotlight to Geisha and how critical this part of the map is for every single bomb site. It's probably more important right now. Oh, hold on a second.
Planting?
Rayduct is planting on Ash. 1 minute in, Fantasy gets the first pick, and E1 are going to scramble in the post plant. Down goes Perez to Lukin. Now it's Dota's taking some damage, still holding above. Geisha is usually so important to hold. They just snuck in right under the very eyes of E1. Fantasy picking up yet another kill. Down goes Raps. He and Rayduct holding these positions so effectively, getting the cross on the main stairs. But a nice shot from Lukin, who still has the upstairs under his control, under his watch. Fantasy sees one, swings out. Down goes Sexy Cake. Timer continuing to run down. Only a few seconds left, and it's not going to be enough. Even if they get the kills, there just wasn't enough time for E1 to get into the bomb site. A spectacular push. MIBR walk right in. Nobody's watching. They plant the diffuser, and they win the round.
I said it was hard to get into the building, typically on attack. I was so wrong. In MIBR, they found this tiny gap in the defense of E1, and they took complete advantage. And they did it in a perfect way because E1, they never realized the bomb was going down until it was already done. And that post plant, it wasn't necessarily the strongest positions from MIBR, but they have the best players in the positions to fight it out in a pure brawl-like battle. Fantasy picking up 4 kills back to back to back, just fighting left and right angle, just not even moving much, but just winning out in the gunfights. He's the perfect man when things are chaotic, and he proved himself in that round as well to just get the job done. E1, they tried with the vertical advantage of having upstairs control to find the angle points, but with no intel on the side because of that Valkyrie ban, they were running around mostly blind in that round and just couldn't guess as to where the players from MIBR were actually playing at.
That's a big error from E1. It might be one of the worst rounds in terms of methodology that we've seen from E1 at this point in stage number 2. But I mean, every team, no matter how good you are, will have some level of oversight at some point in some defense. That one just happened to be very obvious for us. And, well, I mean, if there's an operator that can get into a bomb site quickly, it's Ash. Why not hand the diffuser down? Drone in. Hey, there's nobody in here. We can hop in the window and plant immediately. Okay. Simple stuff. Now MIBR will go for probably less of a fast execute with the Monty holding onto this diffuser. An operator that this region knows quite well. First obstacle, breakthrough office.
Yeah, you got a good setup for it. The Ash, the Bug, the opening kill from Paris as well. Dodes has had a great stage so far, but will not live long in this round. He isn't that with my operator, so the discs will no longer recharge. No more will be had there for protection of grenades. I guess the good news is, Fantasy only has 1 nade left in pocket, so minimal damage can be done in the first place. But this Monty, it's gonna be a problem. Blue Kid on Frost has no tools to deal with it unless he walks into a Frost mat somewhere due to lack of intel.
He's got to weigh in, but you're right. Lukid in a tough spot. No mirror on the board, so you don't see that common mirror placed just by the bar. Support for the Monty, and it has Lukid on the run. Now over towards Terrace. Look down, look down. No, this is rough and leaned the wrong way around the door. Just enough for Nigel to see Astro on the board. E1 showing a little bit of teeth as that's Fantasy gone. As you talked about, Fantasy, the one player who's almost always involved with the first bit of action for MIBR. Action already happened, but Fantasy being the first death, pretty fitting. Press wounded earlier, still persisting. Now it's Rare softened up. Monty still holds on to that case. And the way there, littered with goo mines by Astro. They got pings on him. Just under a minute to go, and there's a gas canister to chip away at the HP of Rare, and it does some substantial damage.
Yeah, it's gonna matter because Astro does have 1 spare impact in his pocket. Do a bit more damage to Monty with Goo Mines or a Toxic Babe. That impact can maybe kill him or get an injure, and that would be huge for E1. They're not in the most stable position right now. Don't have enough guns to cover all the injury points, so it's a bit of a guessing game again for them. If they can strike the right time, maybe they gotta weigh in.
There's Ray Duct making things work. Astro on so low HP, but as long as you've got a pulse, you can still do some serious damage. He's gone now. Only 1 player remains for E1. The Monty's still on the board, and Nigel, full HP, will look for the coverage, but Raps makes it a 1v1. And now the Monty, with shield down, has to engage. Firing away, Raps wins the round. Nice skill between both, but ultimately the Monty was in a tough spot, and the smoke of Raps outplays him. Things did not look good for E1 for quite a while in that round, but Raps makes it happen. The backside of the map, and E1 regains the lead.
Yeah, that's the thing again. The bomb sites are so close to one another that, yeah, sure, you might think you're in a great spot to plant in that round, but it doesn't take Raps many steps to be basically staring at Rare, trying to get down that diffuser. So Buck had no other play than to swing that hallway, knowing that there's a high chance he won't win that gunfight. He wasn't full HP, he's up against SMG11, and Raps, he was feeling it. He got a kill before that clutch happened as well. He was already locked and loaded. He was in a strong position at the purple shield. He makes a dream work with the clutch in the 1v2. And E1, yeah, the early round not really going their way right now because MIBR are doing such a great job with the early aggression. They're so quick at getting that first step done and getting a foothold inside the map. And it's where most teams actually struggle on the attacking side. It's just simply getting in the first room. That has not been a struggle for MIBR. And the thing that's so good about how they do it is that they're not doing it just because of Monty or just because of Dokubi. They're doing it in all of the rounds despite what operators they're playing due to how they're droning, but also the kind of players they have. Fantasy, as we said, always in the action. You tell that guy to take a room in control, he's just gonna sprint right in, no hesitation. And sometimes you only have a couple of seconds of openings where maybe a defending roamer has left the room to check for a drone, and if you can capitalize and run in and take that ground, that defender can no longer come back to that position, and that gives the attackers a beginning place, essentially, for the roam clear.
Gridlock fan, I always get excited when we see a Gridlock on the board, especially when coupled up with a Ram and a Brava as well. It's an innovative lineup from MIBR, one that we don't often see teams roll out. E1 were successful on this bomb site all the way back in the very first round. They give themselves a leg up by getting rid of Ray Duck. That's the Gridlock who'd already used 2 of those track stingers that have been tossed out. Good starting point for E1 to find. Advance from MIBR is going to come from the other side of this top floor, as we typically see on Skyscraper. If you're attacking office, you want to take Karaoke and T first. Geisha, of course, is usually your main entry point. He's being guarded by Sexy Cake, but Nigel punishes him for that. Dodes dies too. E1 got the first pick, and MIBR now have the upper hand in terms of players still alive.
It's a great setup from E1, but oh my god, these gunfights, Fantasy, disgusting! Always finding the heads, always finding and confirming those kills. And all of a sudden, E1, it looked like they might have had that round in their back, with a strong setup, was broken so quickly by MIBR.
Astro getting a read over towards Dragon. As a rotate to go through, a lot of flashbangs just delaying this retake from E1 towards parts of the map that they've already given up. Down goes Fantasy. Luke Kid putting in some serious work. Astro looking the wrong way, back up to the breach. Now it's Luke Kid who puzzlingly goes on drone. I don't think he was intending to do that. Push from one angle, drops to one side. Can't do more than get a down. The nearsighted effect, just ultimately not enough. I think it hit rare at the final moment. Yes, it did. MIBR wins their round, and we have a back-to-back slugfest between these teams.
Oh, absolutely. And it's such a close round as well. Rare was basically a 1 HP. A singular bullet would have ended his life in that round. And it was a really good attempt for E1, but of course that small support with the Frostmat on the window jump in. And the round started off in a very odd fashion. It was almost like MIBR was fighting them with utility. Gridlock Stingers being tossed in, the Ram Drone being thrown in as well. So much disruption, just a noise and chaos. And it was purely a distraction game from MIBR. Because then the camera swapped. We saw the roam clear happening from the Geisha side of the map. And it looked like E1 had a perfect setup. They had one person playing drum, one playing top dragon. And MIBR had no actual drone intel. They're just walking in, kind of assuming it was clear, and dry checking those corners. And all of a sudden, Fantasy and Nigel, they pick up both, covering one another, barely taking damage. E1 was locked out of that one. E1, when they've played their games against Liquid and Vivo Keyed earlier this stage too, they've always seemed like they had a very clear goal in mind with these rounds. And I would like to believe that currently, they do have a clear goal in mind, but MIBR are just disrupting it so well. They're always removing those key pieces, the key positions, and sometimes even those key players as well. You and I, partner, we have been very critical of Astro. He came from retirement, back onto this roster. He's had I want to say a terrible stage statistically, some puzzling plays, some looks of confusion. He's had an okay time so far. 3-3 scoreline, pretty neutral, 2 assists, but he's played an important role of slowing down the Monty of Rare last time we brought it out. I want to see him do it again, stay consistent, because game by game, Astro is looking to feel a little bit more comfortable in these games.
You gotta shake off some of that rust, though I will say I put absolutely zero stock into Rainbow Six Siege retirements. I mean,
no.
Canadian retired, that's why he won a major recently, right? You know, like... I shot by Lukid as the Monty of Rare fails to escort Fantasy in properly. Lukid staring down the mountain and, well, not being afraid whatsoever. Conquers it, climbs it. Was that an amused
Classic
chuckle
Monty.
or...
It's just classic Monty gameplay, you know? Lukid is playing it smart because he's so unfazed by the Monty just staring him down saying, I don't care about you, I care about your teammates. Another Frostmat.
Oh my.
Boy.
Nigel sees Dodes wanting to finish off that kill. Well read and baited out. Now it's Lukid getting yet another, this time onto the Monty as Perez still bleeds out. Nigel finished off by Astro. It's Rayduct in essentially a 1v3. The scoreline says 2, but Perez is not viable at the moment as he's inside a Geisha in a Frostmat. All this action happening on the top floor, which once again only goes to underscore how critical it is that you hold that part of the map, especially Geisha, which is where the main entry point came for MIBR. They struggled to get themselves out of the spot that were put into by E1's aggression early on. And then, of course, a bit of sloppiness, especially with that Monty, as we saw, not able to get the support around the Monty, who is essentially just a moving shield at that point. Can't really influence anything beyond that. You want to get the cleanup, and now MIBR responds by calling a timeout in their very final attacking round.
One of the big things that kind of makes and breaks the Monty is kind of what bomb site. I mean, of course, the first step is like playing around the Monty correctly, as you mentioned, but it's the bomb site that you're going to be attacking. When we saw it being played out last time, it was the office hold upstairs, and they had like this, like what we call it, the hammer and anvil approach, where the Monty is going to be the hammer, just kind of pushing and pushing and pushing the defenders away. And then there's an anvil somewhere, an attacker holding a line. Monty will push them into that line, and they basically die for free. And it worked really well because they had that kind of stopper somewhere on the map, by the double window in Garden. But what we just saw there is just Monty kind of shoving Lukid away, but to no end. Like, there's no one there to capture Lukid. There's no one there to stop him or kill him. And in fact, Lukid was a guy getting both of the kills. First on the Fantasy, who was behind the Monty, then the Monty Rare himself. So the bomb side is in part to be blamed there. There just isn't a good way for the attackers to capture anybody anywhere else, because look at the map right now. What we see right here, where are you supposed to capture Lukid things out of T-Room? There just simply aren't any angles unless you took Geisha in control first. But we saw what happened there. A Frost match stopped that push extremely quickly as well. In MIBR, they are trying different things with different operators, and that is one of the biggest praise that I can give a team, is that when you're when you want to be flexible and you're happy to play that kind of style of Siege, I do think it has the highest ceiling. You're not locked into one way of problem solving or one way of playing the game, and that's a good thing. Because if naturally the enemy plays a way that counters the way that you naturally play the game, you usually just outright lose because they're your counter. But if you're flexible, you can kind of change your pacing, the operators, your style, you can go toe-to-toe with most teams as long as you're, equally good one-to-one in terms of gun skill and everything else and teamwork. So I like what MIBR are doing. I like what E1 are doing as well. And I think it's why it's such a close game, because they're adapting to one another by round.
Seeing a lot of Legion play despite the changes to the operator, making him, I think, in my eyes, a stronger operator than before, especially the addition of the super shorty. 45 seconds in, and these teams will come to blows, but E1 landing far more hits at this point, with Perez going out 1-5 in the first half. Nigel is down. Need to secure the kill unless somebody can get in, and there it is coming from Lukid. Raps dies on E1's side. Vantage still favoring the defenders. The Dokkaebi of Fantasy decides to take an engagement after the logic bomb rings through. Not exactly the way they want. Nearsighted is Rayduck, sprinting literally blindly through Geisha. And suddenly Rare is left alive as the only player on MIBR with almost 2 minutes still left in the round. If you hadn't just taken a timeout, I would say that this is a great time for Rare to actually step aside and let the team discuss what comes next. I mean, it might still be. You've got the second half coming up, but the likelihood of Rare winning a 1v4 is just about as likely as me breathing in space. It's a Gumine on backstairs. This one is over. Impact's going out. He gets a kill on the Astro, but Astro's impact was already flying right through. They technically trade. E1 putting an exclamation mark on that first half with a dominating final round. 4-2 the scoreline. MIBR onto defense. E1 now onto attack.
The entries in those opening duels are just so explosive because they happen out of nowhere. It seemed like MIBR was trying to almost like bait that execute, but they were hoping to get, of course, better results and get those kills. Because while that happened, we saw the last members just sprint towards Geisha, run on straight in towards the bomb site, almost hoping that E1 had maybe left it entirely and all had, run over to assist the roam. And that kind of is what happened, but the gunfights, of course, very heavily go in favor of E1, both on the initial gunfight on the entry, but also by the bomb site itself. A 2-4 half favoring defense is pretty much what we expected to see on Skyscraper historically, so the rounds were very close, could have gone either way. I would say MIBR, they put up a great fight, they got those 2 rounds that they definitely needed. Now the question is, can E1 break those defenses from MIBR? Because this is all about how good you can be on the attacking side. Skyscraper, as I mentioned, being a defender-sided map, you're expected to do well, and with the way the map is structured, it's not necessarily difficult to do it well. It's all about how efficient you are on attack, breaking things apart. Astro ended that first half 6-4. And on the very first attack, he'll also go onto that Monty.
If the operator's available, why not play him? Right?
Yeah.
We talked about the stats before we got into the matchup. operator bans were still ongoing. Monty, the second most banned attacker in Brazil and one of the most banned operators in all of competitive Rainbow Six Siege at the moment. For frankly reasons that are unknown to most of us. I mean, even you were a bit surprised with how influential Monty has been as of late, because this was an operator that was, I mean, you used to play him quite a bit, but he was a niche operator for most teams. This was not a single operator that would be banned every time or picked every time.
Well, you're right. It's like some teams played Monty, some didn't, that's it. But now everyone is banning it and everyone is playing it. Fantasy, somehow, we didn't see it, but killed Monty. Despite Monty's, supposed to having his shield up, extended, shouldn't die to a headshot ever. So very confused to how that happened. And if you're E1 right now, just look at the operator lineup. That was your entire strategy. You're gonna take a backside execute, walk up the staircase into that terrace door from the outside of the building. Monty walks in, and things will start happening. Now Monty's gone. You're still kind of committed to this play. You might have to see it through, but you have no easy way to walk in to get intel. You have no shield in front of your face, no easy way to plant. E1, they're gonna do the quote-unquote clutch this round. It's a miracle work.
Luke looking for another nade down below, 2 in pocket. Oh, just missing out on the defender playing upstairs. Fantasy's been dropped. I don't believe that was from the engagement with E1, but honestly, quite hard to tell. More bullets whizzing through the wall. It's a brazen move by Raduk to get Fantasy back up off the ground, and if E1 had their wits about them, they could have very easily leveraged that into 2 picks. Not just answering back for losing Astro, but ultimately gaining the advantage in numbers. Another nade from below. It's Luke. He's got 1 still in pocket. Yodes, none remaining. About to hit the 30-second mark.
They're just fishing. Again, the Monty means no intel, no way in. They're completely locked out right now.
Yodes first on the board for E1. Raduk drops as well. Suddenly, E1 has grabbed that advantage, not before Perez can eliminate Sexy Cake. Yodes getting that first pick now with Diffuser down as suddenly MIBR are flanking the bomb site. And they win. All of the picks, all of their duels go in their favor. Excellent first defense by MIBR.
Certainly is a great start, and you had to wonder how would that play out if the Monty was alive with full health from the get-go. We'll never know, unfortunately, because Astra did die early in that round. Little desktop. But yeah, sometimes that's how the cookie crumbles, unfortunately. Got a tech pause coming up.
Got to imagine that something...
It's not my games. I was going to say, you can set it for 10 minutes or 5 minutes. Sometimes longer, sometimes less. A short pause. We're right back into the action. We are looking to tie things up. Still 4-3 in favor of E1 Sports. I'll go to this office bump set instead as the second rotation.
Tracking stats as to how these teams are doing in stage number 2, and as you can see on the bottom left portion of your screen, MIBR cannot get first place no matter what the outcome of this matchup is. Top 3 is still within their grasp, but relies on a victory. 50-50 shot if they get it in regulation. Anything less than that, obviously not the spot that they want to be in. First place, pretty good odds for E1. They are confirmed for the top 3, and that's because of the consistency and the good play that they've had up to this point. The results speak for themselves. A regulation win gives better than even odds that E1 will finish in first. It's Brabuni who's actually doing these stats. Big shout out to him. And if he has any assistance that I don't know of, and it's not just a one-man show, then obviously credit to them as well.
It's good.
Thank you. Thank you for weighing in. It's good.
I'm a man of few words. It's good. It's always nice to have, because obviously as casters, we don't have the full overview of exactly what... I mean, I'm not a numbers guy by any means, right? I don't work the magic and spreadsheets, so I don't have any clue about these numbers. So I'm happy that someone is there to help me understand it as well. So yeah, thank you.
I get to be excited about a gridlock again. Oh. Look at the first to die at the hands of Fantasy. And Echo getting involved early is a gamble on an operator who is extremely good in the final moments of a round. But I mean, you do have a decent gun with a good sight on it. So if there's anybody who's going to be getting long range picks, potentially spawn peaks, etc., Echo's not a terrible operator to do it on in terms of the gun that he has. It just, if you lose the Echo early, that is bad. Very bad.
No, it really is. Well, again, it's fantasy. If he doesn't get to be a part of the action early, something would also be wrong there. He might be odd. They're very spread quite a thing in terms of operators, right? They got a couple of different things here that they want to prepare for. Healing, because the nades below, we saw that do a lot of damage last time from E1. We want the mirror window for utility, the Fenrir gadget mines as well as the Yokais for intel because Valkyrie is banned. So they're just in this awkward stage where, well, someone's got to play Echo. And Fantasy probably doesn't want to play Mirror, I suppose, because no zoom scope, so therefore he's in the Echo instead. But again, E1, not very quick on the entries right now, being locked out with that early death again. Early kills play a big part in these rounds, and so far, they are not the most successful at that, at least not on their attacking side so far. It's only been 2 rounds.
Doda's searching for something through these openings created. Ideally to give you a chance to fire back. Fantasy finding kill number 2. Perez as well, able to get on the scoreboard. Sexy Cake and Raps against an entire team of MIBR. Smoked may be isolated. It won't be a flawless round as Raps finds the very first kill for E1 Esport or E1 Sports. It comes with 20 seconds remaining. Now it's Nigel to shut him down. 1 pick on the Raps. Sexy Cake, the trade back, but guess what? There's a lot of people from MIBR who want that final kill. It's the Nitro cell from Rare to get the job done. MIBR now winning 2 in a row, and they have tied the game. Their defense is looking quite crisp, but you can't just give them all the credit. You got to wag the finger a little bit at how E1 looking quite lethargic on their attacks.
Oh, yeah, you do. And I mean, it's all about that early game. I mean, if you're E1, just slow things down. You know the Fantasy is going to be in your face. Hold an angle and wait for you to do the first move. Maybe then you can actually get a relatively easy kill. And I think just try it, right? Again, like, we're all about adaptation and changing things around between these two teams. See if E1 will agree with that and change it up, or just keep kind of knocking down that wall and see if they can beat Fantasy in a gunfight at some point. Because he's 10-7 so far. Fantasy now will be on the solos instead, a much more proactive operator, running out the map, denying intel, and Nigel kind of pairing up on that with the Mossy. E1, they're a flexible team as we've been talking about, they're a good team as we said before, but they are very reliant on information. They need their drones on attack, they need their cameras on defense to make these decisive decisions with intel, not blindly guessing as to what might be going on. So playing a Solis Mossy combination makes a lot of sense here from MIBR, especially with how wide across the map they're trying to spread it out currently, because looking at jump outs, window peaks, first floor hold, top floor hold, they are everywhere on the map all at once right now.
What a run out by Perez that honestly you gotta be a little bit okay with that. You gotta be a little bit happy with the Oryx vaulting out a window looking for a kill as you hear multiple repels on that same angle. Why not try it at this point? It's exciting.
It is exciting. And it's Oryx, right? It's not Echo this time, so you don't really lose anything here either. The only downside of a spawn peak like that for a jump out is that there's no real crossfire or support to be like set up for it. So once you jump out that window, you're all on your own. Maybe if E1 only had 1 member repelling, that goes a different way, but they had the backup. They had 2 people trying to get to that same balcony at the same time, just doubling down. Now they get that opening kill. They can take it nice and slow. They bought themselves a lot of time with that kill because they get that big advantage early on.
It's big for E1 to once again gain the upper hand. They were very good on their first half when they were on defense of getting the initial pick. 5 first bloods for E1, 4 for MIBR at this point. Pretty much every time that you get the first pick, you go on to win the round. There's been 2 times where you haven't.
Quiet mid-round again from E1. Again, playing their cards safe. Double, triple check-ins. Still got a ton of drones alive. And you see right now Luke is trying to clear out that mossy pace to make the drones keep moving forward. No blind check-in, or not too much blind check-in for E1. They get that upstairs in control. Do some vertical destruction, try and prep the bomb side and see where the bomb might be going down later in the round. No real counterplay from MIBR. Yeah, they have a single C4 in Nigel's pocket, but that's really it. No smoke, no pulse, just a solace for intel.
I like the positioning of Fantasy. 10 kills, by the way. Most in the lobby, and that's exactly what you come to know and of him, his abilities. Rayduck dies, E1 now continuing to stretch their numbers. Now down goes Nigel. Fantasy will have to get back to the bomb site to give some assistance to Rare, who's now dead. Fantasy sees one. Excuse me. He has to take these fights at close range, and he gets 3 of them, a 4th as well, but his luck runs out. So close, but Raps gives the round to E1 and shuts down a red-hot Fantasy.
Jesus, that was disgusting. And that's what we call a hospital flick where I'm from. It was so quick and so snappy, and honestly, pretty much out of vision as well. I'm actually sad for him that he didn't get that clutch, because that is so well deserved, that individual heroic performance in that round. Look at that. So perfect, down to the pixel. Raps instead clutches out. He's been a big player for E1. They get that lead again. Get ahead. 5-4. Important round for them. Again, you gotta go back and wonder, what if Perez didn't jump out the window? Just like before that, what if Astro didn't die on Monty? These very small things early in the round, they have a massive impact what happens 2.5 minutes later when it comes down to those 1v1s, the 2v2s, etc. That early man advantage, oh so important, especially from the side of MIBR. They're always playing around to get it, so when they finally do get shut down, when E1 finally is the team to get that first kill, you can see how big of an advantage it is for them. You can also see how desperately they're trying to hold on, droning every corner, double checking everything, not risking anyone's lives until the bombs that execute came through.
Very impressive stuff, and honestly, that stat padding is nice. Luke had broke double digits as well, now sitting at 10 kills. And as nice as those picks for Fantasy were, ultimately meaningless in the grand scheme of things. I was curious as to how the Solus was going to get back to the site. I wasn't disappointed whatsoever. Not really much to say here. Another quiet, not quite mid-round. MIBR all stacked up in a very similar position as E1 goes through the other side of the top floor, once again, referencing something we said earlier in the broadcast, which is when you're attacking one of the top floor bomb sites, you're typically going to enter from the other side of the map on that same floor. That's exactly what E1 have done.
But not progressing all that much right now, and this is kind of a new look from MIBR. They're playing a lot of utility, deployable shields, 1-mine magnets, 2 shields actually, in fact, a runic gates as well. They've created a line in the middle of the map where they say, we own this part, but all of a sudden, out of nowhere, good old Astro Boy just sprints straight through up to that shield, takes off Paris in that position, and that's going to give E1 one angle to get in towards that bomb zone to get ever so closer, but there's still another deployable shield in play. That's Rare and Fantasy playing together on that top red staircase and drum room.
Very even game so far from E1 and Astro in particular. As now E1's focus shifts closer to the bomb site, as you said. They don't want to get bogged down. Rayduck missing a golden opportunity to eliminate Astro. It gives E1 time to take a step back and right this ship. It's going to be DMR versus DMR. Rayduck now watching the top of the shield. He'll have but a pixel to hit the head of the Dokkaebi of Astro. Goat has engaged in a shootout not too far removed, ultimately losing it as Nigel takes some damage, but gets the kill, which is all you can really ask for at this point. Not really much utility for E1. All they're going to be able to do at this point is just go straight for kills, and the clock is not their friend. Rayduck from the same position, leveling 2 players from E1. The advantage for MIBR. Through the wall, nothing can be found, and it's the fadeaway from Fantasy. As MIBR answer back, they came so close on the previous round. a successful defense on Karaoke yet again. They're perfect on that bomb site, and we'll need all 12 rounds between these two teams.
There are some heroes in these rounds. Fantasy, Reduct, Raps, just finding these moments where they say, you know what, I got this one, boys. Reduct before that current round that we just witnessed was 3-7, or 3-6 either way. Now he's 6 kills up, just doubling the score, holding tight on the bomb side with that Aruni DMR. Honestly, what an incredible turn of events there from MIBR. Just saying, we've been in your face, super aggressive, super quick to the punch on our defense, and now we're gonna sit back and play behind utility. And E1, they were struck in the beginning, be like, what do we do against this? It was up to Astro to sprint up to a shield and get that opening kill onto Perez. But then after that, they're in a complete lock. They can't really get anywhere on that bomb side and on that map. And all it took for MIBR was a simple swing or a couple of swings from Reduct to find kill after kill after kill. That's the difficulty of this map. I am curious why E1 have not brought Monty at least one more time before this showcasing of him right now, because we didn't see how Astro died the first time he played the Monty. He died in the first minute to Fantasy. It was a clean headshot with that SMG11. So clearly a big mistake must have happened somewhere by Astro or by E1 Sports for that to happen. But I still think Monty is such a great operator to play against the MIBR due to how much they're moving and due to how much they like getting these gunfights, because Monty can just stop that and give you cover. You can escort people in, you can plant the diffuser. There's so many things you can do that normally you can't really on Skyscraper. Curious to see if Astro will stick Monty for the attacker repick phase, or if he'll go off at last second as last time.
I always hesitate to talk about these operators before they get locked in, because they can get swapped out at a moment's notice. You spend 20 to 30 seconds theory crafting how an Osa is going to get used, only for Dodas to go onto Zofia with 3 seconds left on the clock, and now you kind of look like an idiot, you know? So, I mean, important for us to withhold some of our comments, unless the theory crafting is in more of a nebulous sense and not directly related to that round. In this instance, the Monty of Astro is indeed locked in, so feel free now, Nick, to vamp about what you think Astro can do on this Monty on an office execute.
Well, for starters, you gotta stay alive. I know it sounds simple, but Monty has to be alive for the majority of this round.
I hate to interrupt you, but he did not do that last time.
No, he didn't. See, and that's the issue, right? He died early in the round because Monty is the opposite of like an entry, right? An entry goes in quickly, gets a kill, maybe dies, and you gain map control. Great. You need Monty for the entirety of this map. You need to early game, the mid game, and the late game, because it's that bomb side entry that you need. That's what Monty gives you, a way into the bomb side door to give you live information. Pair that with nades below, a verticality, or a gun behind him, and you got a recipe for success. Astro is walking in. We saw it on the Geisha side of things. He also had a drone assist him. So perhaps drone can check the left, Astro will check the right. All you need now is just to play down this clock nice and slow. E1, they're not in a rush. Actually, they're making good pace right now because Lukid on Twitch are finding cameras, utility, and just pop that canister on the mirror window looking at the breach. So E1, they're set up pretty well for that late round once they get map control. Look at Monty. Now he's by the bomb side door. He just needs help.
Oh my, Fantasy,
boy.
where is this happening? Notice and Sexy Cake are gone. Fantasy is slaughtering the entire server right now. We'll get the ace as there's the Monty of Astro punished by Nigel. 1 minute remaining in the round, and Lukid is in a 1v5. E1 just used their timeout, and now they're going to be gifted a second one. This time, courtesy of MIBR, how thoughtful of their opponents. Completely unwinnable for Lukid at this point.
Yeah, I mean, you got no chance, and that's the honest truth about that. You can always be like, oh yeah, the 1v5 possible clutch. Yeah, it's always possible, but statistically, this round is over. Fantasy is putting up absurd game. 17 kills, hero play after... I don't want to say the hero play, but he's finding these gaps in these openings and taking risks that are paying off and just punishing E1. They took full map control, they cleared from Geisha over, and then guess what? Fantasy walks up a staircase and just wins 3 gunfights in the span of 5 seconds, and all of a sudden, it might be the R. They don't gotta do a thing. One sole member. Fantasy. 3 rounds, single-handedly won by him. It's gotta be a frustrating position for you to be in because they're trying to play as a team, and play structured, and do all the things correctly. In the end, it's just one big shooty boy destroying all that in an instant.
Fantasy's efforts over this entire match cannot be overstated. It's our job to explain the where and the why of things happening and how important they are. But honestly, sometimes it really is as simple as you're roaming and they don't drone you out and you get 3 big picks and the round is over at that point. And the reason for it is just negligence, really, or maybe hubris. Maybe E1 were a bit too overconfident on their entry, thinking historically, from all the VOD review we've done, MIBR doesn't actively hold this part of the bomb site, or this part of the map, rather, when they are defending this bomb site. Who knows?
Yeah.
This round,
That's the thing.
this is going to be fascinating. A bedroom defense by MIBR looking to close this game out, give MIBR a 7-5 victory over E1.
That certainly is spicy. Operators, the usual, but with a small twist. Nigel's on the Capcan, so if anyone from E1 sprints in too quickly, they might be met with an explosion on the door or window frame. Now, bedroom and bathroom bombs that we currently see is not statistically a very well played or often played nor a successful bomb site, but there is one small advantage. Because of how rarely it's played in professional play, you don't have that much experience going up against it as an attacker either. And E1, they are a newer team that's, mixed together from previous rosters of a bunch of different teams. So they probably haven't prepared for this kind of attack because it's not really top of their priority list, or it's probably not on their priority list at all. So it might get a bit dicey for them, which might favor MIBR, of course. And I'm just looking at the entry kills. Those first opening gunfights. Who gets it? Well, this time it's Fantasy going down. 17 kills. MIBR, they really wanted him in this round. It's the Solas as well. You're dealing with Brava cams, Twitch drones, default cams. All of a sudden, when Solas is dead, you can't figure out where those things are going to be in the map. So MIBR lacking intel in this round.
17 kills for Fantasy. The rest of the team combining for 24. 4 players with 24 kills, 1 player with 17. I know that it's not even, but that is still an astonishing drop-off. Fantasy has 10 more kills than Nigel. Fantasy has a full Lukid over Nigel on the team. Speaking of Nigel, Astro with a second kill to remain even at 9-9. Don't know if these MIBR players are just going for swings onto windows and being a bit too aggressive on their defenses. This bomb site does necessitate a bit more aggression from the defenders. You cannot reliably and comfortably sit inside a bedroom or bathroom and expect the bomb site to work for you. You have to go find it yourself. Astro, in this particular instance, has found 3 kills himself. Denied the ace by Dotas, and it seems almost certain that we're going to go to overtime unless Rare can do some serious work. Sexy Cake is down, so suddenly it's a 1v2. Damage was done to Raps as well. Rare looking the wrong way, thinks there's one at the window. Over by Kegs. That's where it looks like Lukid is going to enter from, but hard to tell from these silhouettes. Rare gets droned out and has to immediately reposition. It is indeed Lukid. But Sexy Cake, who's back from the dead, dropped earlier but picked back up, will have his revenge. Well played by E1 to keep themselves in this matchup. Overtime required to settle the score between MIBR and E1.
That round got way too close for comfort. From a 5 versus 1, basically down to a 1.5 versus 1 in terms of health bars. Everybody from E1 so low on HP. Very winnable clutch, but no, it doesn't come to fruition. I think it's fitting that this is going to be an overtime game because it's been so close, round by round, play by play, and it's one of those things where we look at the kill counts. You see E1, they got 10 kills on the highest player of Lukid and 7 on the lowest between Dodes and Texicake. So a 3 kill difference. Look at my BR, right? You got a tall mountain, that tip of the iceberg, so to speak, 17 kills all the way up. Or the bottom, where the climb begins, 5 kills. If E1 could just shut down that particular member of Fantasy, like in the previous round, all of a sudden MIBR, they are a lot less lethal. That's one of the dangerous things of kind of having one player be popping off versus a full team effort. It's not reliable to rely on these hero plays or those big moments with individual players, but you can always count on the teamwork. Playing together, droning it in, setting those crossfires. Because sometimes you're not gonna hit those crazy shots. Sometimes you make the wrong decision, and sometimes you'll die to something like a nade below that's tossed out of nowhere. E1 are very much in it, but so are MIBR. Question is, who's gonna get that opening kill? Who's gonna stick to it with confidence? Because that definitely is key in this matchup.
I knew where you were going with that thought, which is why I giggled, because I felt that you were going to have to repeat the word, but you were just grabbing at the air for something that made sense there.
Yeah.
I've been in those exact same positions. It's incredibly incredible, I think at some point. I said in a cast one time, and I still think back on it. I keep seeing this happen time and time again. I get that Rare was caught by Dragon. He was by statue. Yeah, sure, you've got that window in front of you. You're going to need to swing or be swung. And the gamble ultimately pays off, but I have to think that if you're a Warden, you're gonna want to play a little bit safer on this bomb site. Maybe not 50-50 your life the way that MIBR just did. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong.
I mean, you're right, but this is MIBR's playstyle. They love the 50-50s because they're so good at gunplay that a 50-50 isn't actually an equal gunfight, right? It's always like a 60-40, 70-30 favoring MIBR because it works out more often than not. It's literally the philosophy of how Fantasy plays the game. But look at this. He wants how to strike back.
Luca marching on in. Astro credited with the kill. All that work done by the Twitch for nothing. Nigel into action as Diffuser goes down. Now it's Luca to get on the board again. A shutdown by Nigel. Fantasy in the fun as well. Fantasy looking for more than just one pick on this round. And with Rare on the ground, you're going to need more out of it from Fantasy in order to win. Diffuser was not successfully planted. Raps and Sexy Cake will need to either retrieve it or finish off the 3 remaining members of MIBR unless the timer finishes off Rare on its own. Won't come to pass. Rare picked back up, immediately making his presence known with Nigel in tow. Sexy Cake in a 1v3. MIBR have looked much better this second half. They sat on match point. They weren't able to seal the deal with the single attempt they had. They're going to be given another shot at it as MIBR win the first overtime round and go back to match point.
And I gotta say, I know E1 didn't win that round, but that was such a phenomenal push out of nowhere. Just open up that window, jump in, follow through. They get 2 opening kills, but MIBR again, they're so comfortable just running into the opposition. Yeah, they're engaged. It doesn't matter. Nigel, he'll swing it. Gets 2 or 3 kills. They shut down the plant, and there is this really difficult decision in that round for E1. Because they didn't have the early advantage, because they did lose that opening duel, when it comes down to planting the diffuser down, if you choose to go for the plant, you have one less gun available to take those gunfights on the bomb side. So E1 were kind of gambling that MIBR were still roaming on office side. They were still kind of far off the map, so they can get that diffuser down and then take the fight on equal footing. But the thing is, MIBR, they were really quick to give up that roam, sprint back towards that bomb site, and because E1 were planting, they didn't actually have enough guns to cover the entirety of the map. The back staircase, the mid staircase, and the bomb site itself from T across. So simply, the diffuser gets stopped, dead in its tracks, and E1 gotta pick up the pieces. Bit of a confusion there because Sexy Cake was so far off the map, actually outside the building. Perhaps he was the person entry droning from across the map. That's the only logical explanation. But he happened to play a Vital Operator with a good gun of Iana, so not entirely sure. But E1 saw a gap, they saw an opportunity, they took it. It just did not pay off. Now things they swap around for the first time in a while. MIBR on the attack. Let's see what they can get done here. And what could be the final round.
Well, we are looking at Shocker, a defender-sided skyscraper. Most maps that we've seen so far, defender-sided today and through most of the stage. I don't know what needs to be changed for attackers to start having the advantages they've had in previous seasons. I'm not going to try to diagnose a problem that I'm incapable of solving. I know that there are people much smarter than myself who can't solve it either. It gives me a little bit of comfort. E1 moving on to defense, but they have lost some of Geisha already. And now they've lost all of it. Sexy Cake was holding this aggressively. Down goes Dodez. That bodes very well for MIBR. If Sexy Cake is the next domino to go, and there it is. Nigel in on it. MIBR in excellent position to close this one out.
Yeah. Look at the counterplay. We saw this exact setup from E1 Esports or Sports last time, and that time they were pretty successful. But now the counter's been made and found by MIBR with 2 picks and still all members alive. Looking good. They can take their time now. Discipline might be needed here. Rush too quickly here. You might be found by Astro and shut down immediately. And they need the members alive for utility later for the bomb site. Got those Mirandos staring them down. So the biggest trouble is not yet over for MIBR. The bomb site itself, very hard to break.
Excellent position for them, though. MIBR cannot secure first. We saw that pop up right now. E1 have secured top 3, but if they lose here, despite being able to salvage some of the matchup by going into overtime, still not the end result that they wanted. With how tight we see the top of Brazil, E1 need every point that they can get. There's a grenade from below by Fantasy, whose hot streak has allowed MIBR to beat out E1 in most of these engagements. They're going to have to do the remainder of this round without him, though. Fantasy dying at the hands of Lukin. Now Perez goes down to Astro as well. It's a 3v3. The timer will work in E1's favor. MIBR have to crack this defense. Astro next in line. He's up top, sees Rayduck. Down he goes. Now it's Rare's turn. MIBR, Astro in particular, shutting them out. And it's Raps to send us to a 15th round. These teams so evenly matched.
Not just the teams, but there is one player in particular right now that is popping off, and we've been saying, "Where are you? What are you doing? Where's your performance at?" It's Astro. He is so alive in these rounds. He's looking for fights. We saw it in that round. They're down 3-5. They know it's like in a really bad position. They gotta find some kills and play aggressive. They gotta go on the offense. Astro is the man to do it. Jumping on the table, getting killed, jumping down, getting another, and always just looking for that crossfire with his teammates as well. So even if he were to lose a gunfight, someone else can trade him. It's gotten E1 to this 7-7 position. Look at Astro, top gunner now, taking on the charge. 13 kills to Fantasy's 18. It's exactly what I want to see from Astro. And he's also found himself a more, I guess, aggressive operator, if you want to call it that. Playing on my, playing the Ash, no longer on like the drone duty of Twitch or playing the Muncie, etc. No, he is activated in the server. They're trying to take full advantage of that fact right now for E1.
Impressive depth on the side of E1 as we've been singing Fantasy's praises. Side of MIBR, it's very easy for the superstar player to get all that attention, though. It's Nigel who's actually been the better player over the last 3 rounds. In terms of impact, in terms of play, Nigel's getting it done on those flex rolls, playing somewhat sheltered on defense, but ultimately still capitalizing off of the engagements that he finds himself going into. E1, I was going to touch on this multiple rounds ago, but again, there's just been so much to discuss that they don't really have anybody who's truly standing out. Yeah, Astro's been excellent over the last 4 rounds. At one point, he was in the negatives. Now he's 13-11. That kind of recovery is often enough to win a round or 2, and as you can see from the scoreline, those round or 2 is all that matters. Give MIBR 1 extra round and the game is over. Astro's play obviously helping E1 keep in it.
Yeah.
It's on Monty now, though.
I was gonna say he ended up ending to change it from Ash onto Monty last second as well. You just can't talk about it. He's at the right play. We'll see. We get the opening. It's executed to do it.
Down goes Perez. Oh. An answer back by Dodus. Such a shame it would be for MIBR to mount an impressive comeback, take the lead, and then ultimately fall short in the final round. There's a vault out from Fantasy, his 19th kill. Lukin is no more. Best player on E1 is on a Monty, so you're going to rely more on the supporting cast to get these kills over the next minute and a half.
Or not.
Or not, exactly. Astro pulls out the pistol. Goodbye, Fantasy. Rare doesn't get droned out, but the Monty's there. He sees him. Looking for a pick onto the shoulder of the Monty. The last 2 players of MIBR, their presence has been felt and known. Raps drops, so does Rayduck, but Dode has a huge 3K on the final round. Will give E1 the game. They pick up 2 points. They really Really had to work for that.
They did. But it was an incredible game between both teams. I mean, I love that it went on T all the way down to the wire. We see the Ash of the Monty on that last round from Ash. I'm thinking, please don't go Monty. You're doing so well right now, hitting your shots. But what do you know? He goes on Monty. He basically finds 2 kills himself, and he actually led his team into the bomb site like we spoke about earlier. What they couldn't do before, they eventually ended up getting done. It's a